Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to Thursday Thoughts. I'm so excited to be here with you all live this Thursday. As always, let's talk about what we are grateful for. So, today, y'all, I am so grateful for faith. Faith. When you just keep going because you know what? Everything is a season. Nothing stays the same always. And as they say, trouble don't last always. And so we enjoy the great moments when things are really good. But when things are, challenging, we just know that this challenge is going to pass, and it will. I can assure you. So today on Thursday Thoughts, we're not going to be before you long. We're going to keep it short and sweet. I was thinking, recently I had acquired a new team. I have a new team that I'm working with, and there are just some things that are just helpful tips. So today we are talking about if you are a person who is leading a new team or if you are a new leader. What are just a few things you can do to help build trust and learn your team and build rapport with your leader in your new role? So let's get into it. The first thing when we're talking about having a new team, dealing with a new team, is people. Now, you may be tempted that you're so excited, you have this new opportunity. You may be tempted to come in guns blazing, trying to change everything because you want to impress your leader and let them know they made the right decision. So you may be pointing out a whole lot of things. Oh, we could change this, we could do this, we could do that. Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. Because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to offend the people that are there, your new team. And let's face it, if you come in saying, change this, do this, that doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, folks get offended because they feel like, so you saying what we've been doing all this time just was messed up, no value? Now, maybe some things they're doing didn't really have a lot of value, or maybe you see a greater opportunity, but you want to be respectful of what people are currently doing. So, as a new leader, first thing you want to do is don't go in guns a-blazing, but go in from the perspective of, let me learn the environment. Let me get to know my people. So, the first thing I do is recommend sitting down with your new leader and getting an understanding of their perspective on your team that you're about to inherit. Find out, what are the good things that the leader likes about it? What are some challenges or opportunities? And where do they want you to focus most, right? Then, with your new leader, you want to make sure that you set up regular scheduled meetings with your new leader. So, find out what kind of cadence works for your new leader. And again, we're talking when you're becoming a new leader of a new team, new department, the first 90 days. These are just some tips that can help you out. Okay. So, you've got your new leader. You're setting up your meeting cadence. You're establishing their expectations and what they really want you to focus on. The next thing you want to do is meet with your team one on one and then collectively. Now, I've created almost like an interview type of questionnaire, some basic questions that I like to ask each person on the team so I can find out a little bit more about them. Questions like, are you an introvert or extrovert? I ask them, what do you need most from a leader? What type of support do you need? What type of interaction do you enjoy? Are you a person who enjoys IM messages, or do you prefer emails? Or do you like just picking up the phone? I find out from them to, tell me a little bit about what you do, about the value you bring. Tell me what you like most about your job, what you find challenging about your job. And if it was something that you felt needed to change or should change, what are those things? And not thinking of if there's a cost tied to it, but what are those things that you think, oh, if we could just do this? And what are your pain points, right? So those are just, again, some questions that I ask any one of my new team members, because I want to know their perspective. I want to see things their way. And then I tell them, you know what? I want to learn more about what you do. Because you can become a much greater leader when you have a clear understanding of what your people are doing. And so I recommend scheduling what I call shadow sessions. And shadow sessions are where people, you can spend time with your team. And I do this even in a virtual environment with my team. If they're working on one assignment from beginning to end, let's jump on a video conference and you share the screen and just kind of walk me through what you're doing, right? Just spend a little time getting to know a little bit more about what they're doing, getting invested in what they're doing. It shows that you really do respect them, and it helps to build a trust because they know that you're really trying to understand and be there for them, as opposed to just being a leader and trying to lead from up here. But you're really here making sure they know that you want to be the best leader you can. And part of that means understanding their environment and their needs. Because after all, being a leader is about being a servant. It's not dictating, it's being a servant. So you find out about them. Then you find out, how do they like to be recognized? Do they like, public accolades? Do they like gift cards? Do they like, compliments? Or are they much more quiet? Do they prefer like a one-on-one, thank you, great job? What type of recognition do they like? How do they like to be appreciated or recognized? The next thing you want to do is, find out from them, what do they do outside of work for fun, to enjoy themselves? Trying again to let them know you're trying to connect with them. You learn so much from people when you just show an interest and be genuine about it, a genuine interest. You may discover some people love, mountain climbing, rock climbing. Some people may, love video, doing videography. Or some people may be DJs, or maybe they play an instrument. There's so much more to people than what their roles are at work. So you want to kind of be able to get a picture of that whole person and just build trust. You don't have to deep dive, because some people are very, private, but, things that they feel safe and comfortable in sharing. Again, we're talking about how your first 90 days of being a new leader to a new team, what are some things you should do so that you can be successful and your team can be successful? So during those 90 days, you're sitting down, you're having your one-on-ones with your leader, so you're always level setting. You're doing some shadowing with your team members so you can learn what they're doing. And then understanding the processes. What are some of those processes that they go through? Even map it out, right? Have them, map out what are the processes so you can see, how does the work feed into the area? How does the work flow out? Identify inputs, outputs. Identify, what's your service level arrangements, your turnaround times. How are you managing the work? How are you identifying if the work is quality or not? How are you tracking your metrics? You want to get an understanding of all those things. In addition to understanding that, you also want to set up one-on-ones with your teams, right? Have one-on-ones and then schedule routine team meetings. And what I always establish early on when I'm taking on a new team is the first thing I always tell them, initially, because I'm new to your environment, I want to know for my new team, I need to really get a better understanding. And I can't get that by having a one-on-one or meetings once a month. So we may have one-on-ones once a week. We may start off with an hour, then end up to a half hour. And then after you get comfortable, then maybe it'll go bi-weekly until you can get your footing into your new work environment and with your new team. And then when you're talking and you send the emails, you want to make sure that you use words like it's ours, being inclusive and putting yourself into the team, being part of the team. You don't want to always say things like, well, tell me how your team works. Instead, you want to say, explain to me how our team works. How do we get stuff done around here? Because now you're putting yourself in the team, being inclusive. And then pay attention to the dynamics. Pay attention to, how people get along, who's, identifying or showing up as a leader in the group. And pay close attention to that, because leaders aren't necessarily the ones with the titles. It's the people who carry the influence. So who are those people on the team? Find out, what are some things. I always call people to find out what's their wish list, right? We touched on it a little bit in the one-on-ones, but in the group setting, when you're having your group meetings, your team meetings, you want to make sure that you give everybody an opportunity to use their voice. So if you have some people that are a little quiet, what you want to do is just go around and say, you know what, in our department meetings, I love to hear from everybody. I want to hear everybody's voice. So we're just going to go round robin. Each person will have an opportunity, and you call on them. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes if you're in a meeting and you go, okay, anybody have any questions? Sometimes they just sit quiet. Or you can say something simple as, well, how's everybody doing today? And sometimes they sit quiet. So you say, hello, I'm not talking to myself. Come on, y'all. I need that interaction. I need that feedback, right? So you want to let them know off rip. You need their engagement. You want to hear their voice. You want to hear what they have to say. And going back to one-on-ones, when you're in one-on-ones, another good question to ask them is to ask them, how do they want to receive feedback if their actions are not in alignment with the culture or the goals of the area? How do they want to receive that feedback? That corrective feedback. How do they want to receive it? That's going to be most digestible for them. And then share with them that you also want to receive feedback, because it's a two-way thing. And then you share with them, as being their leader, how you want to receive feedback. Like for me, if somebody has feedback from me, I'm a one-on-one kind of gal. That means if you have something to say to me, or if you need to talk to me, come directly to me. Let's talk one-on-one. Let's talk through whatever your concerns are. I want to hear them. Right? And that's what they want to know. They want to know that you're trying and that you are there. So definitely make an effort to know your team. Make an effort to learn. Create a learning plan for yourself, right? Identify all the different work that's within your new team, and then create a learning schedule for yourself, so you can say, okay, this week I want to try to learn a little bit about this or get an overview on this. So you're constantly checking off what you need to learn. And it's just strengthening not just your skill set, but your rapport with your new team. And that goes a long way. Because if you want to have high performing teams, let me tell you, to build trust and high performing teams, they need to trust you. But to trust you, they need to know you're there for them. And to get that sense, they need to know you're vested. And you show you're vested by showing up, by being present, by asking questions, and by being appreciative and recognizing your team for their contributions. So in closing, right, as we talk through, how do you be successful your first 90 days of a new team? We have the team interviews. We have scheduling your one-on-ones with your leader, getting from your leader what their expectations are, what their pain points are within that area and where they want you to really focus on. And then finding out from your team members, what do they like most about the culture? What do they like least about the culture? If they could change something, what would it be? How do they want to be recognized? You know, how do they like to be shown that they're appreciated and valued? After you establish your one-on-ones with your individual direct reports, you then want to make sure you schedule your team meetings. What are your team meetings? Your touch points. We do things called a huddle. We schedule a huddle maybe twice a week. First thing in the morning, maybe 15 minutes at most, 15 minutes. And it just depends on how large your team is. But typically 15 minutes, no more than 30, where people just run through what's on your plate. You tell me, what's on your plate. How many assignments are you working on? Do you need any support? How can I help you? And you create a culture where people can tell you, this is on my plate. A culture where they feel like if they need help, they're not trying to hide something, but they're showing you, hey, oh, I need help with this, right? You want to create that culture where they can come to you and get help. But you also want your team to feel empowered, right? So sometimes when they come to you, you want to pose a question. How do you think we should handle? How would you handle this? And sometimes they have some really great ideas on how they should handle it. So, start building that trust with them. But initially, you want to make sure you're listening. Take notes and then create your learning action plan on how you can get up to speed so that you're able to be the support that they need. And then find out key people that they go to for certain things. Find out what things that they're lifting that you can offer support and help lift out the way, clear out the way so they can be successful. Because when your team knows that you're rooting for their success, then they'll root for your success. So remember, being a leader is all about being a servant. You're there to make sure your teams are successful. And in that process, it does also include addressing behaviors that don't serve them or the organization that you work in. And if you have to address behaviors, make sure you do it one-on-one, in private, but be direct. Be able to point out what the behavior was, what the situation is. Be very clear. Don't be vague and say, well, you're just not you're not turning around your work. Be very specific. There was an assignment, or if it's, they have poor communication skills and somebody says, so-and-so don't understand. Make sure you can give, there wasn't a time that, you were communicating with so-and-so and so-and-so. This is what transpired. We need to, let's have a conversation about it. So make sure you're real specific when you're addressing behavior. What was the behavior? When was the behavior? And, finding out what their thoughts are about that behavior. And then give them your input on, what you're expecting. And is there any way that you can help them to improve on that behavior? And then document. And document means you just keep what I call a leadership journal. A leadership journal, if you're dealing with behavior that you need to correct or performance, it just gives you a log of, the different instances and just making sure that you're addressing the behavior as it shows up, right? So those are just a couple things that I do, especially when I'm inheriting a new team. And it helps to build high performing teams. I mean, those are the things that I've done time and time again. And I've worked with some amazing people, and that format has served me well. So if you all have any tips on what you do when you inherit a new team, share them in the comments. I mean, we're here to be supportive, right? We talk a lot about balance and life, but every now and then we also need to talk about what do we do for our teams when we're leading? How do we help our teams? How do we help ourselves? How do we show up for them? All right, y'all, that's been this Thursday Thoughts. We're going to wrap it up, keep it short and brief. And I want you all to have a very, very good evening. I'll see you later. Till next week, take care, y'all.